Thank you for the invitation. Also, I'm David, also known as Somaticbits. I'm a software engineer, graphic designer, and I do generative art. I've been minting NFTs since 1 year now. So mostly generative art. fxhash, Higetnunk, object.com, mostly Tezos. And I like to do generative art that is between optical illusion, a bit psychedelic, and stuff that that messes with your brain. Yeah, this is what I usually do. So you can find my links on the channel, on the third cohort channel. Also, I posted the article for today. Which you can find on my Twitter, and if you look for me on Medium, so Somaticbits, there's only one article, so it should be easy to find. And today I'm going to talk about basically how to mint a cable.gl patch onto fxhash, and how it's done. Best practices and this kind of stuff. If you have never used cables or fxhash, it might be a bit tricky. So I don't want you to lose your time. You might want to look into cables first. So cables is basically a node-based environment in the browser where you can create generative art, websites, you name it. Kind of many things. So interactive art also. It's not only used for NFTs; it can be used also in professional environments. The studio I'm working with as a student also uses it professionally. So it's based on WebGL and JavaScript. So it's really easily you can really easily integrate it with all the web technologies in general. And fxhash is a generative art NFT platform where you mint a generative piece, and then you can mint various different variations of the same piece. Yeah, a bit like art blocks, if you know, on ETH. I think, yeah, that's basically it. So now we'll just start to get into the whole thing. If you have questions, just feel free to interrupt me. We're here to learn, so I hope I'm gonna have enough time to do everything because it can be a bit complicated. Yeah. So I'm gonna share my screen. Let me see. So yeah, this should work. Okay. Everybody sees my screen. We're all good.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so this is cables. As I was saying, it's a free framework to create generative art, and with this you can basically create also NFTs. So the main principle would be to once you have done a patch, like I can show you something, some stuff that I've done. Obviously, here we go. So what can I show? Yeah, I can show this one. So this is a really simple patch, and this makes the whole thing to work. So basically, you have a sphere that is being instanced multiple times, and you have a spline that follows loosely the positions of those spheres, and it's just a loop, and it just goes round and round and round. Yeah, and you can go around and scroll, zoom into it, move it as you want. And so to move this patch from cables to fxhash, My workflow is basically to create variables, because you need variables in fxhash to control the. Hang on, I'm hearing something.
Yeah, Dylan, you have your mic on, so please mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I was saying, so my process in cables is to use random numbers. So you start with setting setting variables. So setting variables in cables is really easy. So you just you have this whole those operators which can set variables. So if you want to set a number, you click this and you name it. So in this case, I'm just gonna name it rand. So this is the usual like the first one I usually create. And once you have this rand variable, then you can use it, or you can get this variable in any other place in the patch. So you would use get number, and yeah. So these two are connected. So here you set the variable, so var set. It's called rand, and here you get the variable. And I'm gonna use this rand to set the point sphere random to another seed. So you just connect those two, random seed. So basically, when I'm changing the number here, it's gonna change the number here, and subsequently, it's gonna change the number in point sphere random.
David, I think some of our residents cannot see your screen, and I don't know
Oh,
why. So maybe let's try to redo it. I don't know. Maybe
can we see
share it
it?
and
We can see one
yes.
screen, but it's just a screen with the article, and
Oh,
yeah, all the time you're saying stuff.
right. I didn't see that was the wrong screen. Sorry about that. So stop that. Here you go. This should be better. Yes. Okay. Everybody sees? All good? Yes. Okay. So starting from the beginning again, that would make more sense. So I was saying, I'm gonna remove what I was doing. Yeah, simple patch. You have some spheres that are basically instanced in the 3D world, and you have a spline that goes through the position of the spheres, and it basically
Excuse
just
me.
loops. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm already a little bit, I apologize if this is too basic, but I'm just already a little bit confusing all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just start from the beginning, like where everything started? Did you start with all of the cables here, or?
So no, this is basically a patch I already built, and yeah. So I won't go into how you build a patch, because this is not really the topic. So you might want to check, like, there's a lot of tutorials and things like that you can learn from directly on the website from Cables. So it's called cables.gl, and from there on you can start learning and things like that. Yeah. So this is really more about it's a specific topic. So I was saying, so yeah, instant spheres, and then you have the spline, so the path that you see here moving, going through all the position of the spheres. Yes, and then if you want to set a variable in cables, you use the operator var set. So you can set an array, you can set a number, you can set an object, you can set a variable, a string, or a texture. So I'm going to set a number, and I'm going to call it rand. So it's really the simplest variable you can set. And this variable we're gonna call later from outside of the patch, and this gonna interface with basically with fxhash. So this is really the main contact point that you have between the cables patch and the fxhash frame.
I'm sorry, I don't know if this is an embarrassing question, but can we just define what a cables is?
Cables is the website I'm using to generate those interactive patches.
So is it like a language, like Java, or is it?
It's built on Java and WebGL, but it's its own website. I'm gonna post the website. Maybe it's gonna be easier. So I posted it in the no, not yet. I posted it in the channel, so you can have a look. There you go. So, and with this, it's like Touch Designer or Max MSP, and you can basically build interactive patches out of different operators and connect them together. And yes, from there on, you can use it as a base to mint a generative NFT. You could also use processing, but that's really code based. There's another software that's called nodes.io, which you can do also the same kind of things. And also the really nice thing is that you can, if you're versed in JavaScript, you can write your own operators and basically extend the whole software for free. So yeah, everything. I mean, the whole software is free, so you can really extend it as you want. And if you're even more into WebGL stuff, you can even write your own shaders and add more functionality to the software. So the main way to get cables patches into fxhash is to use variables. And I'm checking also the chat also. If you have questions, you can write them down. Okay, so once we set this rand variable, you can use the get operator. So var get number, and this basically grabs the rand variable and sends it to wherever to the output, and you can use that output anywhere you want. So in this case, we're going to use it in the seed, so the random seed of the point sphere. And so the seed of this point sphere random basically. So this operator basically puts points in 3D space in a random way. So if you change the seeds, it's going to change the positions randomly, but always in the shape of a sphere. Yeah. So what I'm usually doing, if before I'm testing, before I'm coding directly to interface fxhash with the cables patch, is to use an operator that is called random number. So trigger random number. Is it this one? No, yes, this one. Okay. And this operator basically generates a new random number every time you have a trigger. So the yellow box here is a trigger. So basically you have inputs on the top, and you have outputs of this operator on the bottom. So if I use a mouse operator, which gives me which gives me mouse clicks, so right and left clicks. I can connect the right click, no, the left click to the trigger. So these two, and now every time I click, I'm gonna have a different number. I can probably show this to you. There's some new operators, I think. Here, this number. So here, I don't know if you see it. I cannot zoom in. Not really. So here you see it's 0.79, and if I click, it changes. So now it's oh yeah, you can see it actually here. So every time I'm gonna click, it's gonna change number. So, and this number is what I'm gonna send into the rand variable. And now every time I click the mouse, it's gonna send a new random number to the rand variable, and the var get rand is gonna send it to the point sphere random. So you can see, basically, every time I click, the positions of the positions of the points of the splines are changing, and we can do the same on the other sphere where we have the points, and I can just use the same variable. So now I just copied pasted it and connect the random seeds to. So now I'm triggering. I'm sending one variable to two different operators by a mouse click. So here you can see. And this would be basically a way to prepare the patch before you use it on fxhash. So testing it before you send it to fxhash, and you can do this for any variable you want. So if you want to have a second one, well, you just copy paste the trigger random number, you connect those two, and you need a new variable. Okay, so I'm setting a new variable, so we could call it rand2. There you go. So you see, every time I click, I have two different random numbers that are sent to two different variables. I have a question on the chat, so I'm going to answer that. Does cables have applications within 3D environment? Can it be exported as a 3D and interactive asset? If so, which formats? It's basically what cables is a web page, and when you export it, or it's not a web page, it's a JavaScript. It's a script, basically. It's a JavaScript code, and that integrates in a web page, and this can get exported, and you can integrate it into another web page, or yeah. So basically, fxhash, what you're minting are small web pages that are secure. So every patch on the fxhash is a small web page. It's the same for cables. So if you want to export it, I'm just going to save it. You have different options. So you can download the patch. You can export it to GitHub, Netlify. You can have also a standalone patch as a exe file. So it could be it can be used. It can be used on a browser, and it can be used as a standalone application. But it cannot be integrated with let's say, an another 3D software. Does that answer to your question? Cool. I was saying, so current state, we have two variables, one rand that is called rand, the other is called rand2, and those two variables get random numbers sent to every time I click the mouse on the patch. And now I can set the second point sphere random to rand2, and now we have different numbers every time I click. Yeah, easy peasy. Okay. And that's the way I usually test my patches. So what I'm doing is I build a whole patch. I'm going to show you maybe some a bigger patch. Do you see what I'm doing? Okay. Because now we just use two variables, but you can use a lot more. Sometimes I have like 10 or 12 variables. Let me find something that is a bit bigger. Yeah, shades. So this one is optimized for fxhash. So here you can see basically, so everything that is on your left and here, so everything that is not up there is basically the patch. And here you can see all the variables that are being set. So currently it's been optimized for fxhash. So I removed all the random number generator. But if you want to see the patch without that, how it looks like before I remove all of that. Looks like this. And this is a patch you can find on my fxhash portfolio. And as you see, we use the same system. So every time I'm going to click this mouse, I'm going to have random numbers that are generated and that change different parameters in the patch. And this is this is just for testing. So when I'm building my patch, I use this trigger random number and the mouse operator, and I set variables like that. And once you are, let's say, you're ready to, you're happy with your patch, then you have to remove all those trigger random numbers. So like this, and just keep the operators that set the variables. I can show you where I'm setting. So you can see here, I'm getting a rand number, and it's being set by here random number here, and it's inside the patch. So the advantage if you work like this, also you don't need to rethink your whole patching system. You already make it really easy to work with and just translate to fxhash. Because the usual way you would do it is to have trigger random number, and that triggers and that number gets sent directly into an operator. But by sending it to a variable, or setting a variable and sending that variable to the operator that needs the random number, you're already building the whole foundation of your fxhash patch. Okay. So the next step would be, once you're happy with that and you want to mint it. So one really important thing is that if you want to mint on fxhash, you need to remove all the random number generators inside the patch, else they will get triggered every time somebody mints a new edition of your NFT, and your patch is never going to look the same for the same hash. So fxhash works by using the transaction hash, I think, And this transaction hash is basically the unique seed for your for the addition of your NFT. And you really want to have always the same appearance for the same hash. It should not change. So that's why you have on the fxhash you have this try with same hash. And if your patch is changing for the same hash, it means it's not good. It's not good to go. So you have to find where you're using something that is changing the patch every time you use the same hash. Yeah. So I'm going back to the small project, and so right now we're in testing mode. Okay, all good. And now I want to mint it. Now we're gonna go. We're gonna prepare it. So we are just gonna disconnect the trigger random numbers here and here. And just for the example, I'm gonna leave them inside the patch. But if you're preparing the patch for minting, I would suggest to have the original patch with the trigger random number, so you can still test it if it doesn't work so well, and a new patch that is just a copy of the patch you just done, and removing the trigger random number, the mouse, as I did here. So here you can see the patch without the trigger random number, and it's exactly the same patch, just without these things. So these pieces, these operators. Okay. The next step would be to export your project. Oh, I have to save first, obviously. So save, export, and you can, you export a zip file. So we export a zip file. You download it. Don't think you're gonna see that. Let me change the screen. Yeah. So currently I'm just gonna download it. So downloading the patch. I have to rename it because I always use the same name. So vertical. So I have my patch here in downloads. I'm gonna copy it on the desktop. I'm just making a new directory because I cannot do it normally. Okay, so we have the directory. You copy the patch, you unzip it. And inside you have what I was saying. So you have basically your JavaScript script. You have some credits, some licenses, documentation. You have your index.html, which basically loads your JavaScript file. You have some legal stuff, and you have a screenshot of your patch. So if I double click on this, no, it's not going to run. But it doesn't matter. So really, what is important in this file is this patch.js that you can find inside the JS folder. So this patch.js is basically your JavaScript file that is going to load your cables patch. And once you have that, you have to prepare a new folder. I'm going to call it fxhash. And you can copy that JS folder inside that fxhash folder. You can remove the JSON, the two JSON files, because it's just backup. You don't need it. It's just useless in our case. And the next step would be, so you have your JavaScript file, and you need an index.html and some CSS to make the patch behave properly. So aligning, centering, and everything. I think you can probably find templates on the fxhash GitHub, which should be useful. I might have also some templates, but I'm not sure if I'll let them open. I'm just going to reuse something I have done already, and so I can show you how it works. So where is it? 32B. Here. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have a question in our chat.
Sure. Well, it would be a good intro tutorial to watch on this. So you mean cables in general? So a good tutorial, well, you have, if you go on the website on Learn, you have a beginner introduction. And it's really, using the, I think Murat wanted to do a one-on-one on cables or something like that. I'm not sure if he has already done it. But it's probably going to come on vertical on the residency also. As check this playlist, which is the official cables playlist for beginners. If you're coming from Touch Designer, it's a bit different. So the flow is not from left to right, but it's top down, and the composition system is a bit messed up. It's a bit more tricky to use. But once you get used to it, it's pretty fast. I think if you have already Touch Designer experience, it's going to be really, really quick. I have a Zero Alpha who is also in the residency, either as a mentor or as someone else, artist. I think was also using Touch Designer, and he picked up cables pretty fast. So yeah, but you have to keep in mind that if you're using cables, you have also a problem, or you have not the problem, but it's not only going to run on your computer, but it's supposed to run on every computer and mobile phone. So you have to be careful about the performance, which is not necessarily a problem in Touch Designer, but in this case, it's a bit different. So the next part is really more about how to code or how to integrate the variables we set before in cables into the files we need to mint the patch in an fxhash. So ideally, you would have that to mint cables patch. So you will have your JavaScript, which contains your whole patch. You would have index.html, which basically loads and sets the variables of your patch. And you have your style.css, which does really minimal styling. So it's just about centering the patch in the iframe that that fxhash uses, and removing the scroll bars. So I can show you the CSS first, because it's going to be the quickest. So yeah, basically I just have no margin, no padding, full width, height, and some sizing basically, and this makes it perfect for fxhash. And then the other part that is going to be a bit more complicated is the index.html. So this is really what combines fxhash with cables. So this So this part is basically something that you can get on the GitHub of fxhash. They have various templates, which I'm gonna link also, so you have them. And if you want me to prepare a template, also, you just send a request, and I can prepare that. Something really simple. I don't know if it's this. Yep. So in the repo, you have the simple boilerplates, which you can probably use. So the only thing you have to change is that currently they have the JavaScript outside of the JS folder, so you just have to link that together. But it's really minimal stuff. So it would be just changing a line inside the boilerplate. And you can find other boilerplates on the fxhash GitHub. Okay, so currently, I'm just gonna make it a bit bigger. Okay, so these are two functions I use to clamp and map. So basically, clamping is if you have a number between 0 and 1, when you clamp, it just stays between 0 and 1. It doesn't go over to 1.1 or 1.2 or -1 or whatever. And mapping a number is basically taking one number, its minimum and its maximum, and setting and changing the range of that number. So basically, if you have a number between 0 and 1, and you want to have a number between 2 and 3, well, you set minimum of the value in min to 0, in max to 1, and out min to 2, and out max to 3. And that will map the value from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. It's not directly tied to fxhash, but it's really useful because a lot of the times you want to have you don't want to have only 0 to 1, because what I forgot to say is this is basically the core of fxhash. This is what sets the random seed out of the transaction. And from the transaction hash that you have when people buy your or mint your NFT, you get a number between 0 and 1. And that number, sometimes you want to have something that is not necessarily between 0 and 1, but as you can see here, is something that you want to have between -15 and 20, or 0 and 4, etc., etc. Okay, so I'm gonna remove those variables because these are variables for another patch. So we have, if we look at our patch again, we have two variables. We have rand, and we have rand2. And we want to use those variables inside the fxhash patch. So you just call this fxrand. Yes, correct. So what this is going to do is assign the 0 to 1 random seed that is generated by the transaction to the rand constant or variable. And we have rand2, which is also going to be set by fxrand by the random seed. So each of these are going to be a different number, and yeah. So this is the first part. So you set your variables here, I'm going to remove this also because this is useless. And the next part would be to add the features. So in our case, we don't have a lot of features. We just have two variables that are setting the random seed of the spheres, as we saw before. So we have rand that sets the seed of the point sphere random 1, and rand2 that sets the point sphere random 2. So you can name them. This basic the name on the left is whatever you want to name it. So if I want to name it random number, let's say random number 1, and the variable on the right is going to be the variable you set here, and this is going to show the number that is assigned to this in the features window in fxhash. So rand here, and you don't need to put all the random numbers here. You can also just select a couple of features that are interesting and set them there. So random number 2, rand2. Here we go. Up, there we go. So we have basically two features that are going to appear on the fxhash website. So we have random number 1 that is assigned, that is given by the variable rand, and random number 2 that is given by the rand2. And the next part is how we connect. No, I'm just going to leave it. Well, how we connect the patch to fxhash. So this line is how you basically interact with the patch from outside the patch. So we have rand, and they should be named the same. So if this on the left is the name of your variable inside the patch, and on your right is the name of the variable inside your JavaScript. And rand2, and I really it's a good advice to keep the variable names constant. So you're not gonna have like rand in the cables patch and then random in your JavaScript. Then you're gonna get lost, and you wanna keep some kind of unity between everything. And this is basically it. From there on, I can select all of those things. So, and inside the folder, you don't zip the folder. So it's different from Hic-et-Nunc, where you zip the whole folder. Here you go inside the folder and you zip it. I had issues at the beginning because I zipped the folder because I was coming from Hic-et-Nunc, and yeah, that didn't work. So the next step would be, well, we're gonna try it in the sandbox of fxhash. So you drag and drop the file you just created here, and you start tests. So here you can see we have those random numbers we were setting from inside from the JavaScript. So now if I retry with the same hash, it's always going to be the same. It doesn't change. But if I change it with a new hash, I'm going to have something different. So you can see the random numbers change every time I change hash, but they stay the same with the new hash. And yes, so that's the very basic way of combining cables and fxhash. So from there on, well, you just need to, you set your variables and build your patch, set your variables, and just put it together, basically. I'm gonna leave it open for questions, or if you wanna have new topics or whatever you want to learn on cables, as we still have around 40 minutes. So feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to give you advice or bring you in any direction. Also, basic stuff on cables. Now is the time if you want to learn. Yeah. Do you want me to show you something else? Do you want me just to show you some techniques? Yeah.
I just got here. I'm sorry. I was late for the class. I'll watch this first part later as a video on YouTube. But I would like to see basic stuff on cables, like super basic, because I opened it once and yeah, really couldn't get to do anything.
Okay. Did you work with Church Designer before, or with node-based systems, or whatever?
No, what I did before was some stuff in P5, and I understand that the dynamic of things connected, because that's also how Blender now uses the shading.
Correct. Yes, with the materials and everything. Yeah. Okay, then I'm just gonna give you a quick overview of cables, how it works, and yeah, what you can do basically. If you have, as I said before, if you have some experience with Touch Designer, also feel free to ask some questions. What's the difference between those two? Because I have experience in both pretty good. Yeah. So cables is node-based programming language or environment, and that means that you connect boxes with other boxes. So in cables, the first operator you would use is the main loop, which makes your animation run 60 frames per second or less or more, depending on if you want to, depending on your computer, depending on the performance of the device you're using it on. You can also set less because you have a FPS limit here. And this basically is the really the core of cables. And from there on, you can what could we do? We could set let's say a texture. We could set the color of a texture. Okay. So what I just typed here, or what I used is draw image, which basically draws an image onto the screen, or it should. I'm just going to test it out quickly. Yeah. So it gives me a warning. It has to be child of image compose. So these two usually go together. And if I want to use a color, yeah, I'm going to use a color texture. So we have 4 elements. So we have the main loop, which is really the core of your patch that makes it run. You have an image compose, which composes image together. And And then you have draw image, which feeds into image compose and allows you to draw a certain an image into the composition. And I have color texture, which is basically just a rectangle with color. So if I connect the texture output here with the image, it doesn't show anything. But if you click on image compose, you can see that the texture is being drawn. So basically your texture is inside here. Yes. Is it already too advanced, or do you want me to go even slower? I can explain even.
It's fine
even
for
more.
me. I'm looking, and yeah, it's good.
Okay, cool. Yes. So so this is really just a really basic way to have a color. If you want to have it on screen, you need another node which is called full screen rectangle, and this if you connect this and this, there you have. So full screen rectangles takes the whole size of your canvas, so the rectangle, the square you have here, and fills it up with whatever image you have in the compose node. So I could use also I could use a webcam or something else. I don't know if there's a yeah. So here you see me on another webcam, and so I'm just putting another texture inside it. Now, actually, we're gonna keep the webcam so I can show you what kind of stuff we can do. Okay. So yeah, it's not square, but yeah, let's say that's fine. So you should see me twice now. Yep. Okay. And if you want to, if you click on the nodes, so the nodes and operators are the same. Because sometimes I use both terms interchangeably. If you click on them, you're gonna see you have a lot of different options here on your right. So you have, let's say, if the image compose, you have viewport size, you have filter. If I click on, if I click on the webcam texture, you have different FPS, the width, and some things like that. So this is basically where you set the options. If I was using the color texture as I was using before, I could set I could set a different color by using either those sliders here, or by clicking on this color picker, and then you just choose another color. In the case, so I was saying before, you have inputs on the top and you have outputs on the bottom. What is really cool is basically now you can control the individual inputs with something else. So we were using trigger random number before, so I'm just going to reuse the same. So trigger random number, which triggers a random number every time it's being clicked. And I need something that clicks, so I need a mouse. There you go. And now every time I click, I have a different number as we saw before. This number. There you go, up. And the thing in the middle is called this number. It's just to show you that the number changes every time I click. And now we can duplicate this 3 times. So we have 3 different numbers every time I click. And you need to click on the canvas. So the canvas is basically what you see on your right. Here you go. Here you go. So every time I click, you can see it changes. Okay, now we're going to connect the outputs of those numbers to the inputs of our color texture. And the inputs here is basically the RGB that you see here. So you have red, green, and blue, and that's how you change the color of the color texture by mouse click. Well, obviously you don't see anything right now because it's not connected to anything. But if you connect it with the webcam texture, so I'm going to remove this, and then I'm going to use a thing that is called a multi-draw image. So it's basically the same as our draw image, except you can compose different textures together. So it's like the Photoshop layer system. You can multiply, overlay, screen different textures together, and then you can build a whole image. So now I'm going to use the texture as a first texture, use the color texture as a second texture, and currently we don't see anything because we don't have a blend mode to working together. So now I'm going to set let's say multiply, and then you can see it's not that nice. Blue overlay, yeah, overlay. So you can see now I have the webcam image that is being overlaid by the color texture. And now if I click on the image, you have a different color basically every time I click. And you can see the number changes every time. Yeah. And that's the basic way how cables work. So you have nodes that you put together, and then you have some interaction with the outside, from the outside world or not, and you change your patch according to different parameters. So you can change it by time, you can change it by interaction of by a mouse click. You could use sensors, you could use various things. You can also use videos also inside. Obviously, you can import videos. Yeah, and now we can also. The fun part is this is really the beginning of our patch. So from there on, I could use texture effects that changes the texture, or the texture that comes out, that is being used in this image compose. So if you type texture effects, you have lots of different texture effects. So we could, as an example, well, we could add some can we add that? Some glitch? Yeah, we can add some glitch. We change the overlay, and there you have it. You can add some glitch on top. But if you want to make it move, you have to add another patch. So right now I'm just changing colors by clicking on it. Really simple. But we could use something as a timer or something like that. So a timer, basically, is that the right one? Time, or maybe it's time. No, timer should be fine. So timer gives you, gives you time. So the moment you put the operator on your patch, it starts and it just runs. And you can connect that timer to something on your glitch, on the glitch noise. So if you click on the output and drag and drop the cable onto your operator, you're gonna have all the options where that cable could connect. So in our case, we want to, let's say we want to scroll it. That's a bit fast. So you could just reduce the speed. Okay, that's cool. But now actually I have to click manually to change it every time. So how about we create something that that triggers randomly and changes color automatically. We could do that. How would I do that? I have to think about it first. Okay. So those yellow lines that you see here and the yellow boxes that you see on top and on the bottom, these are called triggers. So basically it triggers the operator. In this case, it triggers at 60 times per second because it's the frame rate of your patch. And you can use those triggers to trigger various things. So either you can here trigger it with the main loop, so 60 times per second, or you can use the mouse to trigger it every time you click the mouse. So here. But now we want to trigger it, let's say randomly. So I'm gonna connect something that's called a probability trigger. And this triggers randomly, maybe just sometimes. So on 60 times per second, it's going to trigger let's say every 2 seconds or something like that. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. And now I use this probability trigger and I replace the yellow cables. So if you want to disconnect the cables, you right click on the cables. That's a bit fast. So we would just reduce the probability. Yeah. So now I have a 0.02 chance that the trigger is being triggered every time the main loop is being triggered. So yeah, on 60 triggers per second, it's going to be triggered a certain amount of times. So it's going to be completely random. Yeah. And the cool thing is, if you want, you can also use this number, one of those trigger random numbers, or you can even have a new one. To trigger the glitch noise here. So we're gonna use a variable again as we used before, just so you don't have cables that go through the whole patch and it looks messy after a while. So set var. We're gonna call it rand. So we're just gonna send this random number to the rand variable and get the variable. And change the seed. So now I'm basically scrolling the glitch texture, and every so often I'm changing the seed of the texture. It's not the best. What else can we have? We could use a hexagon noise instead. So I'm going to replace this. So right click, remove it, right click, delete. And instead of the other noise, I'm going to use a hexagon noise. Use the overlay it, or screen it, or however you want to blend it. Soft light. And use the same the rand variable to set the seed. And you can scroll a bit faster, maybe. So here you can see it's basically moving the texture on the z-axis and changing the seed of the noise every so often, while also changing the color of the noise of the color texture. And yeah.
The first day I
so
went
now
there,
nothing
like,
is
some
being
big
used
bully
by
kid from high
my
school
mouse,
thought I was like a new student or whatever.
and
he came over,
it's
and he was,
all,
like, giving me
let's
a
say,
hard time,
automatic.
and I was like, "Hey man, I'm a student teacher," thinking he would back off, and he's like, "Art teachers are the biggest bullshit artists in the
And
planet," and I'm like,
also the
what
cool
am I
thing
do- I
is,
hated
once
it.
you have this
I hated high school
I
'cause
mean,
I
the
was like
chains, you
a
can
weird guy, and
really
like, why am
extend
I
them
intentionally
however
going
you
back
want.
to high school to teach on a
So if
place
I
that I
want to
hated,
add, let's
right?
say,
Like I'm getting bullied as a
chromatic
student
aberration on
teacher,
top,
like, again.
well, you could just
So
add it here,
anyway,
and
I
you can
started
see
going to studio
you have
art in
an
like
additional effect on.
90s, and I actually didn't like
And
computer art. So my dad, you can imagine, as an engineer, was
what
always
else
trying
can
to
I
push me
use?
into digital art,
Not
and
that.
like I took logo classes.
We could use the dither. So dithering basically
had the turtle
makes
and
it
it
black
goes
and
around in
white
circles and
with
like
this
makes
kind
like
of effect.
spirographs. I mean, essentially generative art. But I was doing that in like mid '80s when we had the
And
big floppy disk thing. And
obviously
you
we
would, like,
don't
put
see
it into the
anything, so we
computer.
would use some blend mode on top. Well, this looks nice. So currently we have the webcam image, which is overlaid with the color texture. On this color texture, on these two textures that are composed together, we have a hexagon noise that is being scrolled. The position is being scrolled by the timer that we have here, and the seed is being changed every so often by this trigger random number. And the color of the color texture is also being changed every so often by those three random number triggers. And then we have the chromatic aberration as an effect, and we have the dither that adds another effect. And if you want to add more effects and more, you can always do it. That's not an issue until your computer runs to the ground or you don't see anything. Yeah, that's another option. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of different effects that you could use and to. Yeah, chromatic aberration is cool for sure. It's one of my favorites ones. Yes. So yeah, this is like a really basic overview of how node-based environment work and how it works with cables. So I would really recommend, if you're really interested in this, check out the cables website. Go through the tutorials. I spend a lot of time doing the tutorials, going through the tutorials. And one cool thing also is that a lot of people, including me, just have their patch public. So you can really go inside the patches, check out how they have been doing the stuff. It's going to be a bit nicer than just what we did here, but it was just for demonstration purpose. Yeah, so we could, what is nice? I think this is pretty nice. It's already 2 years old, so, but yeah, you can do this kind of stuff. Really cool. I really love the colors of that. What else? Oh yeah, this one is really cool. So this is one of the guys that works on cables. So yeah, and you can see there's a tiny bit of chromatic aberration here on the edge, and this is basically 3D noise that is being visualized with some particle effects. And if you open the patch, it's actually not that complicated. Yeah. Okay. So, any other questions? Do you want me to show you something else? Show some patches of mine to explain how I built them? Anything? And obviously, if you have, yes, please go on.
Well, I was actually curious because I joined a bit late because I was busy, but this feels like it's a node-based programming and stuff. Does Touch Designer work with this at all? Is there a way to like include some Touch Designer elements into this? Do you know, or because I know Touch Designer. This is the first time I see this program, and I was just wondering.
So no, this is web-based. So basically, you open a browser and you
Okay.
you program directly in your browser.
Okay.
If with some programming, you could probably work them together, but I'm not sure it would be the best workflow. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
But as I said, if you learned Touch Designer, then it's going to be pretty easy to pick up. Like a couple afternoons, and you should be already set up.
All right, perfect. Because I'm a big fan of node programming because then I can actually feel like I'm programming and I don't have to write programming code.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I started with node programming before I started coding, so this is really close to my heart. So I've done I've done Max MSP, Touch Designer, Vue, and cables. So yeah, it's just this is I'm a visual guy, so this is really how I work. Yeah, so it's cool. Okay. So if you have any other questions or mine or requests also later, just feel free to hit me up on Twitter. Also, I just wanted to mention it. I'm pretty available in general. Also, if you have problems with your patches or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, if you have no further questions or any inspiration, any ideas you want, or I can show you how some things are built. As we have 15 minutes left.
Yes, please.
Okay. So let's see. What do I have? Okay, let's see what I have. So this one is pretty cool. It's a bit slow, but yeah. The nice thing with this one is really the lighting. So, and it's not that complicated in terms of lighting. It's just a matcap. So basically, a matcap has all the matcap material, and it has all the lighting, all the shading, the reflection, and everything already baked into the material. So if you don't know about matcap, you should definitely check it out. It's really amazing to work with these things. The only thing, you cannot really change the lighting, but yeah, that's how it is. So here you can see this is a matcap. This is another matcap, and this is the last matcap. So I could probably change it. Oh yeah, I'll put a. And it's really light also in terms of processing. So yeah. Also, if you're not minting NFTs, or if you're minting NFTs, you can add some small menu. The guys from Cable also integrated the whole UI system, which is pretty cool, and I used it in a couple of NFTs, I think, at the beginning. It's also cool to debug and things like that. So, and I can change the cell size. Yeah, these kind of things. What else? What do I have? I have classic stuff like this. So yeah, really basic. Actually, it's not that basic. It's a kind of autonomous creature. So it's you can see the black thing coming here, So it's moving around the environment, coming and going outside of the 3D environment, and it's always going to be changing. So it's really like a small autonomous creature, and you can buy the NFT and put it up on a huge screen and let it run, and it moves around, changes. Really like that that small project. What else do I have? Some stuff is not. Yeah, I don't see. Oh yeah, this one is cool, especially in full size. I don't know if it's looking so good on the stream. Ah yeah. So yeah, this is really layering. So you layer a lot of different layers, and with the basic movements, I can show you the patch. Maybe it's gonna be. So basically, you have a lot of Perlin noises that transform circles that are being instanced. So you have lots of different circles, just like 2D circles, and they move around with Perlin noise. And while moving, they also change the number of sides. So it goes from triangle to square to pentagon to circle, because in the end, a circle that has 3 sides is a triangle. So and added on that, you have different textures. You have a pixel texture with some noise and things like that. Okay. What else? I think this one is cool. Ah, yeah, this is nice. So this one, you can actually scroll around, move it. Yeah, you can move it, and it changes always. It's a sphere that is being displaced by a texture. So basically, what that means is that you have a round sphere and you apply a displacement texture on top, and it changes the way the sphere looks. And then you add some, and then you render the output, and you add some filters on top, and you can scale those textures and everything. So it looks like this. What else? I think this is pretty cool. Yeah, and this one works by mouse click. And I've minted this as an NFT. So basically, if you buy the NFT, you have unlimited amount of artworks. So you can really have fun and check it out and change. Yeah. All right. I think yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, David. Yeah.
No problems. No, I just wanted to say, yeah, you have the next one coming, so maybe people want to have a small break.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I was going to ask you because, of course, we need a little bit of rest because this was super intense and very super interesting. So, yeah, of course, people, if you want to rewatch this class, you can on the YouTube channel. We will share the link in our third cohort chat. So, yeah, thank you so much, David. Yeah, it was really intense, of course, but yeah, you will be you've been a very helpful mentor. And also, I don't know if you have a one-on-one a time to schedule or with our residents. I don't know if you have this kind of availability, but I don't remember if so. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Currently, I don't have because I'm
Okay.
pretty. But if really it's needed, just feel free to hit me up and we'll manage something. That's not a problem.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Okay. So see you around. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.